The reason why I decided to read Nova by Samuel Delany is not necessarily the noblest or the most enlightened. And here it is. I work in academic publishing, and one of the journals I work on is going to feature an article by Samuel Delany, one of the most revered, one of the greatest science fiction writers of our times, and a great literary scholar. Now, it's not like the two of us will have to work closely. In fact, my interaction with Delany is going to be really perfunctory, and there's a chance I won't even be working with him as much as his agent. But at the same time, I experienced this very strong feeling of inadequacy, knowing that I might be in a position where I'll be working with one of the greatest writers of the 20th century. And I haven't even read one book by the guy. And so I decided to do something about it. And I was expecting to enjoy Nova. I was expecting to like it in the way I truly liked the novels of Isaac Asimov, which I devoured when I was 19. Or in the way I really liked, for instance, The Demolished Man by Alfred Bester, which I read a couple of years back. I was expecting to find it nourishing and entertaining and stimulating and fun. Instead, what I found was a novel that changed the way I look at the possibilities of fiction, that challenged my conceptions about what good narrative and good writing looks like, that challenged my conception of what the English language is supposed to look like. Nova is the kind of mind-bending, mind-twisting novel that leaves you reeling. In the same way as you're left reeling, where you're confronted with a twisted, experimental postmodern novel, or with the psychological insight of a modernist text. Except that reading Joyce or Woolf is kind of hard work, whereas Nova really isn't. It's incredibly fun, fast-paced, captivating, and the novel is peopled by unforgettable characters, and there are many more rivers of lava and flying monsters in here that you find in the average Joyce novel. Now, I know I just mentioned all of these 20th century texts and authors, but the one author to whom I would comfortably compare Nova is actually William Shakespeare. There is a certain theatrical intensity in the novel that reminded me a lot of a text written for the stage. Characters talk about their friendship with language that shines with a really bright intensity. The hate between enemies is absolute and all-consuming. And love is a passion that's sparked instantly, burns really bright, and is destructive in its intensity. To be honest, the other main text that it would be natural to compare Nova to is Moby Dick, because both books are concerned with captains who are obsessed with their pursuit of something that might very easily destroy them. But I believe that Nova only resembles Moby Dick because Moby Dick is another really Shakespearean text, and Ahab in particular reads very much like a great Shakespearean, larger-than-life character. The other very Elizabethan thing about Nova is just how ambitious and compact it is. This is a novel that deals with revolutionary, tragic events which are going to change the face of its world forever, in the same way as, say, King Lear or Macbeth deal with grim, tragic events that shape the face of England or Scotland forever. But all of these stories deal with these really ambitious topics through a handful of speeches, a couple of really fast action scenes, and a really fast-moving plot. As I was reading Nova, I had this feeling of immense dread, especially as I was nearing the end of it, because the stakes were so high and there was still so much plot to get through that I was convinced that either this was actually the first in a 6-novel series, which I was pretty sure that it wasn't, or that my edition was flawed and I was missing the second half of the novel. But it wasn't. The book does pull it off, and in a way that is in no way rushed or hurried or contrived. Sure, it is a compact novel, as I said, but there is a certain artistry to the way it's narrated that makes all of these events and its very fast plot feel very believable. In the same way, once again, as a Shakespeare play. If you think of a play such as The Tempest, you get so many twists and such a turbulent plot. You get shipwrecks and you get old enemies facing each other, old friends reuniting with one another, eternal love blooming, and all of this happens in what is actually the span of a few hours. But it's still believable because of the artistry of the story. Similarly, when I stepped away from Nova, I realized that the events of the novel probably all took place in the course of perhaps a long weekend, and yet when you read conversations between Katin and the mouse discussing their deep and meaningful friendship, they are truly intense and moving and believable. Never mind that this friendship is only a few hours old. I've been talking a lot about the artistry of the novel, and in fact, one of the central concerns in Nova is precisely the novel as an art form. Novels as uniquely equipped to deal with certain aspects of the human experience and to capture certain elements of human life, and novels with their strengths and their peculiarities and their structure. And one of the points that the novel makes through the character of Katin is that every novel teaches the reader how to interpret and how to access it. And this is definitely the case with Nova itself, of course, even on a very basic level of language. The style, the narrative style and the lexicon, the language of Nova is all quite peculiar and cryptic. But even in its trippiest passages, when the novel is describing characters literally tripping on drugs, or where it's describing an especially fast-paced action scene, Nova is always understandable and somehow manages to create the language of this far-flung world far into the reaches of the future. It conveys the dialects of different people from different corners of the galaxy in a very natural way and never feels like a difficult read, even though, as I mentioned, some of its passages can be quite opaque. And the reasons for it is because it's just so much fun. You are just so interested and compelled by the story of Lorc von Ray. You just want to find out whether he'll manage to reach his ambitious goal or whether Prince and Ruby Red will triumph and the old world will triumph with them. Because of that, you absorb very naturally this complex language and make it your own, really. It's a bit like learning a foreign language, but not really doing it through a dusty old book, but doing it by dropping yourself into the culture and the country whose language you're trying to experience. And, I don't know, learning French by ordering French food from a menu. Some other sensual pursuits such as that, really. Similarly, there's an awful lot of speculative politics and sociology and anatomy and all sorts of subjects in Nova. It's part of its nature as a truly ambitious science fiction novel, a novel of ideas that really tries to reflect on what the next steps in human evolution are going to be. And all of this is quite heady. In fact, I'm sure a lot of it flew completely above my head, especially the specific dynamics of the political and economical implications of why Illyrian, this coveted material, is so important to the galaxy. I look forward to trying and puzzle that out better next time I read the book. For all of that is quite complex and quite difficult to grasp, it's never boring and it never puts you off the story, just because all of these ideas and all of these abstract concerns are always intertwined with a very relatable, emotional stakes that the characters are dealing with, and with the inner lives of these people that you come to care very much about in the very short time that you spend with them. I call the novel's politics and economics and other concerns speculative because they deal with the future. But of course, these concerns are also the concerns of its time and of the present, in the way historical novels, or indeed science fiction novels, novels concerned with different times than the one they're written in, are always only really trying to deal with their own time. And if you think Nova is not intelligent enough to know this, think again, because of course there's another cut-in reflection about this specific subject in the novel itself. What this means is that for all of its speculative nature, Nova is very much a novel of the 60s. It was published in 68. It deals with a specific moment in time where an old world is possibly on the brink of collapse, and a new model for the galaxy is emerging, new possibilities are emerging. It describes a world of great opulence and great possibilities, but also a world where culture is supposed to be stagnating and fragmented, and the classics of the past are gone and only exist in museums, and there's nothing good emerging from the cultural world of today anymore. And these concerns sound to me very much like the concerns of certain parts of the intellectual world of the time, of the 60s. And one of the messages, one of the most beautiful messages to emerge from Nova, is this idea that perhaps the fragmented nature of today's culture is precisely what makes it so good and so valuable. Sure, maybe the universal canons of the past have disappeared, but the motley and varied nature of today's culture is precisely what makes it valuable. And if this sounds to you like very much a manifesto for postmodern art, let me tell you that the other novel Nova reminded me closely of, with good piece of my point about Shakespeare, is The Crying of Lot 49 by Thomas Pynchon, one of the key texts in postmodernist literature, in the creative freedoms they take when dealing with the English language, in their concerns for the hidden nature and dynamics of power, and in their trippy, fast-moving plots. These novels are very much cousin texts. Nova is more majestic and serious, whereas Crying of Lost 49 is more sneering but sinister. But at the same time, they are so similar and share very similar concerns and a similar take on a specific moment in time where the new generations were rejecting the ideals of the past in the name of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, according to the more mainstream narrative, in the name of new models of living, really. And Nova tries to reflect on this important moment of transition in ways that are stimulating, in ways that are thought-provoking, challenging, and just sheer fun to experience. Umberto Eco said it best when he said that Delany was not just a great science fiction writer, but a writer who invented a new style of his own, in the same way as Pynchon invented a new style of his own. I absolutely recommend Nova to fans of inventive fiction, to fans of challenging literature, and of course to science fiction readers. It's a must-read. I am so happy I decided to read it, and I truly look forward to exploring more of Delany's oeuvre. Thank you so much for watching the review, and bye everybody.